The Two Teresas, an accounting of a legend, a book review of Robert Walker's The Two Teresas. This is not a story about whether Mother Teresa was a saint or a fraud. That debate is a trap, binary thinking designed to protect us from the harder question. This is an accounting of what it costs to become a legend, and who pays that price. Robert Walker's masterpiece dismantles the binary entirely, offering a profoundly nuanced autopsy of institutional charity and the dangers of unexamined faith. Two images, two origin stories. On the left, Oslo, 1979, a Nobel Prize on a linen cloth, sanctity made visible, poverty made holy, suffering transformed into beauty for God. On the right, Howrah Station, September 10, 1946, a third-class railway ticket, sweat-soaked surge, a city traumatized by communal violence. The true origin of the missionaries of charity. The legend begins with the Nobel. The truth begins with the train. And Walker understands that truth lives in the space between absolute faith and absolute certainty. In 1946, she heard a voice. 4 words, "Come be my light, I thirst." It was the most consequential sentence of her life. It was also the last time she heard it. From 1946 until her death in 1997, half a century, she experienced profound spiritual emptiness, meticulously documented in secret Manila journal entries the Vatican never wanted you to read. She wrote that she spoke of God's presence while experiencing only his absence, that she was like a person describing colors to the blind, except she was the one who could not see. Walker exposes the tragedy of her calling. She was required to project absolute certainty about a destination she had ceased to believe in. Walker bypasses the icon entirely. He doesn't argue with the legend. He examines the human machinery that sustained it. The doctors who bit their tongues, the bureaucrats who buried the files, the volunteers who finally broke the silence, the journalist who followed the money. 4 witness files, 4 fractures in the architecture of a myth. A doctor caught between medicine and theology, a bureaucrat who chose state complicity. 2 whistleblowers who exposed the moral and financial rot, and a journalist who mapped the PR machine that made it all untouchable. Dr. Ranjan Mustafi, Kolkata Medical College. 37 unsent resignation letters locked in a teak drawer, a private leather journal documenting preventable deaths. The case study that haunted him. Krishna Patel, age 24, treatable pulmonary tuberculosis. The cost of a cure, 3,500 rupees. The funds in the account, millions. The result, death by medical neglect stamped natural causes. The dying were not given morphine. They were told that their suffering was Jesus kissing them. Walker forces you to sit with that sentence until it stops sounding poetic and starts sounding like what it is. Arun Bhattacharya, Deputy Director of the Social Welfare Division, his evidence, a 3-page document titled Response to Assessment. A masterpiece of bureaucratic evasion that buried evidence of unlicensed facilities and forced conversions. Meanwhile, Mother Teresa accepted the Legion d'honneur from Haitian dictator Jean-Claude Duvalier, blessing the architects of poverty while comforting their victims. The political benefits were undeniable. The moral calculations were less clear. Walker shows how the state and the saint needed each other. Calcutta's aesthetic problem solved by geographic surgery, the poor made invisible by being made sacred. Susan Shields, Sister Sevica from the Bronx Mission. Her evidence, photocopies smuggled inside a Marks & Spencer handbag to a cafe in Bloomsbury. What they revealed? $50 million sitting in New York bank accounts, earning interest under the label Future Provisions. Meanwhile, in Calcutta, a ward of 60 dying patients was allocated 12 aspirin tablets per week. 12. The organization perfected the art of looking poor while being rich, relying on the doctrine of divine providence to excuse systemic hoarding. Walker lets the numbers do what rhetoric cannot. The gap between the account balance and the aspirin count is the entire argument. Mary Catherine O'Brien, 7 years as a volunteer in Calcutta. Her evidence, a simple cloth bag packed in 4 minutes, and the memory she could not leave behind. Kamala, an 8-year-old with cerebral palsy, tied to a chair for 12 hours a day. The dilemma Walker crystallizes is devastating in its simplicity. Love without competence is just sentiment. The dying were told their suffering was beautiful, when what they needed was basic medical care and sterilized needles. Walker's prose shines brightest here, describing O'Brien's quiet rebellion as she left her habit folded on the mattress like a discarded skin. Marcus Webb, investigative journalist. His evidence, a wall of financial flows and theological justifications assembled in a London flat. Records of Charles Keating's tainted $2 million donation for an AIDS hospice. The realization that broke the story open. The Teresa model required the continuation of poverty to justify its existence. It was an industry that transformed treatable illness into spiritual opportunity. Institutions are living things, Walker writes, and like all living things, they want to survive, even at the cost of the people they were built to serve. September 1997, room 314, Woodlands Nursing Home. The final irony, the architect of austere, medically barren homes for the dying spent her own final days in a state-of-the-art medical cocoon. Every monitor, every intervention, every comfort she had denied to others, provided to her without question. Archbishop de Souza administered last rites. A woman who had spent 5 decades praying to silence was translated immediately into memory and myth. The monitors failed, the legend solidified. To make a saint, you need a miracle. The Vatican found one, Monica Besra's tubercular cyst. On one side, the ledger of science, Dr. Mustafi's rigorous documentation of 9 months of ripe therapy. Rifampicin, isoniazid, pyrazinamide, ethambutol, an 85% success rate, standard pharmaceutical treatment. On the other side, the myth, the Vatican declared a spontaneous resolution and deemed it medically inexplicable. Walker exposes the institutional alchemy that converts standard medicine into divine intervention, proving that miracles are required more than truth. September 2016, St. Peter's Square. Pope Francis declares her St. Teresa of Calcutta. The speech contained what Webb recognized as the most honest admission possible. She showed that the poor are not problems to be solved. The institution did not solve problems, it maintained them. The poor were brothers and sisters to be loved, but not patients to be cured. Walker lets the Vatican's own language do the work. The canonization was not just of a woman, it was the canonization of a narrative, one that requires poverty to be permanent, suffering to be beautiful, and questions to remain unasked. Dr. Mustafi, age 90, standing before the global humanitarian complex in Geneva, speaking the sentence Walker has been building toward for the entire book. The greatest danger in humanitarian work is not malice, but unexamined good intentions. Malice we recognize, we resist, but good intentions that cause harm, these we sanctify, institutionalize, replicate across generations. The Teresa model distilled a legacy of beautiful suffering, maintained poverty and charity that requires the very problems it claims to solve. History rarely chisels the names of the whistleblowers into marble. Mustafi, Bhattacharya, O'Brien, Shields, and Webb exist parallel to the hagiography. Their names won't appear in stained glass, but Walker's book serves as their archive, a testament that the truest form of grace isn't found in gilded frames, but in the ordinary hands that seek to ease pain without requiring it to mean anything. Competence is the most profound act of love. This book proves it. Available now on Amazon.